We will call this meeting to order. If everybody could please stand for a moment of silence before the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
All 18 members are present.
Have the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion for the approve the minutes? Member Blair, Member Ruland. Any comments or corrections? Seeing none, please cast your vote.
Member Bryant? Oh, there it goes. Eighteen ayes. Proclamations and presentations?
Yep. We're going to go a little out of order. First, if Jennifer would come up, we have an anniversary for a special employee. Becky Spencer, would you please come forward for your pin?
Letter. Congratulations on your anniversary with Peoria County. Peoria County Board appreciates your dedicated service throughout the year. Service longevity, great commitment to provide excellence for Peoria County. And a symbol of appreciation.
Jay, it's not on.
Is that better? Oh, I can hear it. Sorry, should have noticed. In the time that I've been working with Danny on public safety, Becky has been priceless in answering our questions from constituents, anything and everything when it comes to the care of animals, as well as our employees and making sure they're safe. So thank you for always going above and beyond, and congratulations on this anniversary.
Thank you very much. I am nothing without my team. I have an amazing team of animal control officers, kennel technicians, and administrative support staff that make us what we are over at PCAP. So it's because of them that we do what we do. Thank you.
Next, a proclamation recognizing Family House and their dedicated staff. It said Shauna Shipman. Is nobody from Family House here? Okay, well, we'll move to save that one, or if they come in later. Next, that would bring us to a proclamation recognizing the Diocese of Peoria on the occasion of its 150th anniversary. Father Lambert. Sister, come on. I think Sister Julie needs no introduction. Everybody knows her from being active in the community and participating. Father Lampe, I have the pleasure. I did not know that he would be here tonight, but he is leading St. Mark's to wonderful directions. My kids are students, just like Steve had his pastor here last week. Father Lampe is my pastor, who we're very, very blessed and lucky to have him on the west side and doing what he's doing for the school and the parish over there. Just as we celebrated 200 years, it's a diocesan of Peoria's 150th year. So with that, my pleasure to read the proclamation. Whereas the Diocese of Peoria serves nearly 135,000 Catholics in 26 Illinois counties, including the 19% of Peoria County who are Catholic. And whereas the Diocese of Peoria was first established by Pope Pius IX on February 12th, 1875, with Bishop John L. Spalding naming the first leader of the diocese in 1877, and the dedication of the Cathedral of St. Mary of the Immaculate Conception dedicated in 1889. And whereas during its long history, the Diocese of Peoria has grown the Catholic school system, helped establish St. Francis Hospital with the Sisters of the Third Order of St. Francis, and has led the canonization cause of Archbishop Holton J. Sheen, among many other outreach programs the Church continues for the residents of our community. Whereas the marking of the 150th anniversary of the Diocese of Peoria is meant to be a time of great spiritual, ecclesiastical, and social significance in the life of the local church. And whereas the 2 years celebration of this milestone is marked by the message of proclaiming Christ and making disciples, which include pilgrimages, social service opportunities, and other events. And whereas Peoria County is grateful to have the Diocese of Peoria as an important part of the county's spiritual and social bedrock. Now, therefore, I, James C. Dillon, Chairman of the Peoria County Board, on behalf of the Peoria County Board, do hereby recognize the Diocese of Peoria on the occasion of its 150th anniversary. And I apologize. I knew I was going to butcher that word. So.
Always dangerous to give a priest a microphone, but very happy to be with you all this evening. Thank you very much for recognizing the diocese. Bishop Toka is in, I think, Baltimore for national meetings, so he couldn't be here this evening. So we asked his favorite priest to come and receive the proclamation this evening. So thank you again for recognizing the good work that the diocese is doing. Our 150 years here being in Peoria in central Illinois. Thank you very much.
And while Sister's here, I want a specific announcement that was just made a couple weeks ago about the museum and what's going to be happening at Spalding Institute. It's the growth of Archbishop Sheen. You want to talk about it for a second?
In case everybody hasn't heard yet, we are going to completely restore the old Spalding Institute. Fulton Sheen went to school there, and we're going to put an experience center there. So what does that mean? Last year alone, in 2024, we had visitors to our current museum from all 50 states and 53 different countries. There is no one else bringing more visitors from other countries here to Peoria, the city of Peoria, than our museum. So we've run out of room. Sometimes there's 150, 200 people there and we can't fit them. So we're going to redo Spalding Institute, and that's going to be on one floor. And then on the floor above that, we're going to have a place where people can do podcasts, radio shows. We're going to have technology that other museums in the United States haven't even thought of yet. Holograms, all sorts of stuff. So keep in tune. It's going to take about 2 years, but we're still open now in our current museum, and we plan on probably getting 10 times the amount of visitors once we open. So.
Next, a proclamation recognizing Ron's carpets. Betty?
Okay, we have a proclamation here for Ron's Carpet. Whereas in 1992, after working in flooring his entire life, Ron Hayes realized his dream and opened Ron's Carpets and Hardwood And whereas after Ron's passing, his wife Carol Hayes and stepson John Baldwin continued the business. And for over 30 years, Ron's Carpet has been a leading provider for full service flooring in Peoria and the surrounding area, offering a broad range of products, styles, and colors at an affordable price. And whereas in 1995, the company was able to expand its operations in the same area with the purchase of adjoining properties in Peoria. And whereas Ron's Carpets sells only the best with flooring, has to offer standing behind any and all projects and meeting the needs of their customers. And whereas with exceptional and efficient service, Ron's Carpets create stunning and trend-setting spaces, listening to the customer from consultation to installation, a pillar of the company since its founding. And whereas with a strong passion for turning dreams into reality, Ron's Carpets has built a reputation for excellent quality and service with any budget across generations, withstanding the test of time. Now, therefore, I, James C. Dillon, chairperson of the Peoria County Board, on behalf of Peoria County Board, do hereby recognize and thank Ron Carpets for their unwavering service to the Peoria County community. Proclaim this 13th day of November 2025, James C. Dillon, Peoria County Board Chairperson, attest Rachel Parker, Peoria County Clerk.
I'll be quick. Obviously I'm blessed. I got to spend 30 years working with my mother, which obviously not everyone is fortunate to be able to do. I was blessed with that opportunity to learn from her. And now my son has come back from college and working hand in hand with me, so I get to live that legacy, down through him. But really, just like you guys, I'm just blessed with our community. I would not be here. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the blessing the community provides to us. So thank you. Thank you.
That would bring us to citizens' remarks. There was none filed. So that would bring us to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to put down the consent agenda? Member Renault, Member Daly. Would anybody like anything pulled from the consent agenda? Seeing none, please cast your vote.
Member Phelan? Eighteen ayes. Next, we're at zoning ordinances and resolutions. Item 9.1, FY 2026 authorized staffing count, administrative departments. A joint resolution from your county operations committee recommending approval of the FY 26 authorized staffing count for the Peoria County administrative departments.
Motion by Ricker, second by Coates. Comments? Seeing none, please cast your vote.
Some of them were coming in, some of them weren't. So I hit it again. I heard all the chatter. I was like, okay. Member Salzer, how would you like to vote? There it goes. 17 ayes and 1 nay, with Member Elsasser voting nay. Item 9.2, a resolution to adjust fees for services for FY 2026 as amended. A joint resolution from your Finance, Audit, and Legislative Affairs Committee and Executive Committee recommending approval of an increase in fees based on a comprehensive study conducted by Bellwether Advantage LLC to be implemented in a phased approach beginning January 1st, 2026.
Member Williams, Member Daley. Before Member McCann makes that motion, I'm just going to explain what's going to happen here real quick. Clerk Parker is going to step down from the clerk's chair while Somerville takes that seat. So I'm going to, for rules to participate in the debate, it's board members only. But if there's questions of Clerk Parker will be there to answer any questions in regards to that. So the official keeper of the minutes will be Brooke during this conversation. So FYI. Member McCann.
So the amendment 9.2.1 is somewhat of a redoing of the fee schedule. The Bellwether fee schedule, which was originally presented to the Finance Committee, was in a graduated schedule for the clerk.
Member McCann, make the motion to put the thing on the floor first, and then we'll have discussion
Gotcha.
motion.
Sorry. Okay, so I want to make a motion to put on the floor the amendment 9.2.1.
Okay, is there a second? Member Duncan, now discussion.
Okay, thank you. And then in committee, the graduated fee schedule for the clerk's office was removed and the fees went up in one jump. This amendment is trying to go back to the fee schedule with a bit of a compromise. Instead of a three-step, multiple-step process, it's just a two-step process, an increase of somewhat in 26, and then a jump up to the full fee schedule in 27, which was a compromise between the two options.
Thank you, Member McCann. Other questions, comments? Member Williams.
I've asked Scott to talk a little bit about the financial policy that Peoria County has in place and to give us some historical perspective on that. So I'm going to let Scott take that over.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Williams. So I'm going to reference the board's financial policies, which if you don't have your budget book with you, they are in the financial policies section of the budget book. These were enacted in the early 2000s. This policy, along with the vast majority of the financial policies. Prior to that, the board did not have any financial policies adopted. And the reason for adopting financial policies at that point in time was a result of this body having to issue tax anticipation warrants just to make payroll as our reserves had been depleted. So, revenue policy number 4, user this very subject. And there are 2 policies that you over the years have enacted and sometimes have amended. The first bullet under revenue policy number 4 says that we should charge user fees for items and services which benefit a specific user more than the general public. Those fees are determined by state statutes or an indirect cost study done biannually. And those fees are based on the cost study that are done on the cost study are done as needed to determine the level of fees equal to our cost of providing the service. And where possible, we should be enacting fees to recover our cost of delivering the service. So at a high level, your policies say that we want to recover costs we want to set fees to cover our cost. Where we can set fees based on statute, we should do that. And then we should be looking at fees on a biannual basis or once every 2 years. When you met a year ago, you approved in the FY25 budget dollars for a fee study to be conducted for fees that included the sheriff's office, PCAPS, the health department, the coroner's office, and the clerk's office for both vital records and for recorder of deeds functions. We conducted that project with a third-party consultant that we've used for many years. Results were provided to the offices and departments back in May. And then we worked with those departments throughout the course of the budget process to ensure that revenues were included in their FY26 budget request. As this played out, both at committee 2 weeks ago and in the interim, there were concerns raised by the clerk's office about the impact the recommended fees would have on their customers and clients. And leading up to the committees, we proposed a 3-year phase in for the fees in the clerk's office. The 2 of those fees on the vital records side are also the fees that we looked at in the health department. And those are birth certificates and death certificates, because the health department is the actual registrar of the county for those records. And because team members in those 2 offices are both subject to collective bargaining, but are in different collective bargaining units, our costs for delivering the same service is actually different depending on where you go to receive or to obtain a birth certificate or a death certificate. And the volume is split roughly 50-50 between the 2 offices in terms of where people go to obtain those records. As we came to committee 2 weeks ago, Member Williams made a motion that passed to eliminate the 3-year phase-in of the fees in the clerk's office and go to the full cost of what the fee study came back with. The amendment that's before you right now that Member McCann has moved to approve would take the fee schedule that was originally recommended by staff for 2026, and then in January of 2027 would increase to the full amount that was in the fee study. We also looked at, for the 2 vital records I previously mentioned, what health department was charging and what the clerk's office would be charging. We've made sure that those are consistent. There is some nuance, though, with the health department, as the Board of Health does have some some autonomy in terms of setting their fees as well. But speaking with the public health administrator, I expect that there to be cooperation with the Board of Health and will be consistent between the two offices as we go forward. Happy to answer any questions and happy to answer any additional questions from Member Williams.
Member Williams.
Scott, can you tell us the number of in this budget for 2026 for the total collective bargaining agreements, how much the increase is going to be? Now, that does not include the senior management folks. Am I correct?
Right. So, senior management, we've gone to a procedure of looking at the Table A of Consumer Price Index Urban in May to set the budget amount for senior managers. Each collective bargaining agreement, and you've approved a collective bargaining agreement for all of our bargaining units in the last 24 months. We're going to see over the course of this year, if you look at the personnel changes throughout the budget book, and I'll reference it by turning to budget highlights. Stand by. So if you look at budget highlights, page 18, you can see that the original adopted 25 budget had I'm going to round $63.8 million in personnel costs. That's wages, benefits, and pension costs. The revised budget, based on budget amendments you've approved throughout the course of this year, has increased that to $64.3 million. We're projecting to spend $61 million based on vacancies throughout the course of the year. And then the recommended number for FY26 is $69.14 million. So there obviously is from the revised number alone, there's roughly almost a $5 million, about $4.8 million increase in personnel costs, largely tied to collective bargaining, the implementation of collective bargaining agreements that the board has approved.
So I just want to make a comment, and then you can move on to other questions. I am chairman of the Finance Committee, and my job is to adhere to our financial policy. And our financial policy says we recover the costs of the fees. So I am not going to be supporting Marcia's amendment because we have a policy in place that protects the county's finances and in turn protects our taxpayers. So I will not be supporting this.
Member Blair.
Do we know the percentage of people who can demonstrate financial need who go for these services, like, for example, at the county clerk's office?
Administration and finance do not. That'd be a question for the clerk.
We don't keep track of every single person that comes in with, issues on paying that fee. So no.
So that, concerns me into going for this, for supporting this motion, because I don't know how many people need us to make this graduated schedule for this. So I will not be supporting this amendment for this. I would support, though, a fund to help people who can demonstrate financial need, who might find that the new fees are excessive, to get them back down to what they were. I am comfortable with that, which I assume we could do at a later time.
Thank you, Member Blair. Member Duncan.
Okay, going back in reference to the amendment 9.212.1, in the restoration of the graduated fee schedule for our Peoria County clerk. And I appreciate the numbers that were presented thus far. But the concern we have here also is to phase in changes that would minimize the abrupt impact to those customers, citizens who would come in and use the service. As I understand, and I would like for Ms. Parker also to expound on this, but because this information was presented not in a timely manner where she could be involved in making the decisions associated again with Sharon's committee. Therefore, she should have been involved in helping to make the decisions along with Scott and I believe Shauna. Also, Rachel, if you want to expound on that phase change, as also, in regards to phasing in to minimize the abrupt impact on your department?
Well, initially at the committee meeting, I had asked for a pause to be put on the fees totally. And of course, that was not acceptable. And I understand the city hadn't been done for a long time. And I understand that fees need to go up. It was just the fact that I didn't have a seat at the table when it was all discussed. But regardless of that, we've moved past that. I've accepted the fact that the fees are going up. And so the least we could do is let that be phased in for the customers so that it doesn't hit them as hard. And we're all still accomplishing that same goal, which is the fee increase in year 2. When you look at the total dollars that we're talking about as compared to the total budget, we're not talking about a lot of money. So I don't see that it would be on that first year that huge of a deficit, if you want to call it that. It shouldn't be a deficit because our department does bring in well over revenue of what we spend, but we also realize that we take care of other departments because that's a part of our department is putting into the general fund. So we know that. So to me, this is a compromise. To me, it's fair to phase it in. And we're not talking about a lot of dollars or a lot of the items on that list. It's just a few because most are already set to the higher amount.
Member Phelan, they don't get to member.
Yeah, I'd like to start by saying that I've had many conversations about this in the time that we've been discussing it. I spoke with Rachel. I've spoke with Sherry, who works in Rachel's office. I've spoke with administration, finance, and a number of the board members around the table, a constituent from my district, and also somebody that represents a local political action committee here in town. I am very sympathetic to these increases, and I can understand how they definitely have an impact. We have a lot of economic pressure that there isn't a person in this room that doesn't feel. Everyone is impacted by the economy at this point in time. But I would like to ask a series of questions to clarify a couple things that either have been said outside of this room or in the room during committee and in this board meeting. So my first question would be, of these fees, who pays them? Are they residents of Peoria County? Is every fee paid by a resident of Peoria County?
Member Phelan, are you speaking just to those that are covered by the amendment, or the broader question of all the fees that were studied? I'll answer it this way. So the fees that are under consideration for Member McCann's amendment, those are in the clerk's office. Those are largely, but not exclusively, going to be Peoria County residents. As an example, a birth certificate was somebody who was born in Peoria County but may no longer live in Peoria County, or a subdivision plat may be by a developer that maybe lives in Tazewell County but is developing land in Peoria County. So the likelihood that it is a Peoria County resident is probably pretty good, but it's not exclusively a Peoria County resident.
Could you talk a little bit about the clerk's office is funded out of the general fund? This amendment would subsidize fees out of the general fund. So could you talk about what revenue makes up the general fund and where we would be paying for this from?
Sure. So the clerk's office is a general fund department, as are all the other departments that were that had fee studied, with the exception of the health department, and they cover fee. That fee revenue covers the general operations of the offices and departments that are in the general fund. And so they're general revenues of the county. Much the same way property taxes and sales tax and income tax and personal property replacement tax are general revenues of the county. They help fund the various departments that are within the general fund, as they have no restriction on their use. Whereas, say, for example, an office or a department that receives grant revenue would have the expenditure tied to that grant for a specific purpose. So a grant, for example, would not be a general revenue of the county. It would be a specific revenue within the general fund. A good example of that would, say, be salary reimbursements for probation officers, because probation is a general fund department. Those are specific to that office and that function, whereas the fees that are collected by the clerk's office are general revenues of the county and help support the entire general fund.
Could you also share how we studied several departments that are all taking increases, but decided to do a graduated increase with only one of those?
So for the other offices that were part of the fee study, finance worked with each of those offices and departments. The office and the department actually received the fee study directly from Bellwether versus it being funneled through county finance. And then as those offices and departments built their FY26 revenue budgets in the summer, they worked with finance to incorporate those based on historic volumes, what the added revenue would be for each one of those fees. I'll let the clerk speak to her thoughts on how things transpired, but that same process was followed. The clerk expressed concern about the impact the proposed fee increases would have on her office's clients and customers. We chose to, in administration and finance, work a compromise that resulted in the original recommendation of the 3-year graduated implementation schedule.
When looking at the fees, it appears that from 2025 until the original proposal, or until Rachel's or the clerk's office is at its full scaled increase based off of the Bellwether study, it is a roughly a 717% increase across all fees. And when you look at that against all the other departments that were included in this fee study, PCAPS, Peoria County Animal Protection Services, is at 1,771% in increases to their fees. So I guess what I would say is I brought an amendment to the floor last committee that failed because it was assumed during that conversation that it would only be affecting one department. And there were remarks that when we do this, we should be thoughtful and make sure all departments are treated the same. And what I see happening with this amendment is we are singling out a singular department and deciding to supplement them, and they're not even the highest increase. And I'm trying to think how we got to this tonight and why we would be doing that. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Could you share why we choose Bellwether and what Bellwether does beyond fees for other municipalities.
So we selected Bellwether a couple of decade or a decade and a half ago, probably in the late aughts, early teens. We had been working with a different provider that does the same type of analysis and service for local governments in Illinois for many years, but they, for one reason or another, that board at that time, and administration at that time, chose to make a transition to Bellwether. The vast majority of their work is this because not just county governments, but municipal governments have the same statutory responsibility to have a third party conduct a fee study when the local government wants to consider raising a fee for service or fees for service. And and at the same time, they do a number of other analyses for local governments as it relates to some cost benefit analysis. I know we actually used them with the sheriff in the late teens or earlier this decade for some specific kind of, I would say, fee adjacent or revenue related analysis. So that's the bread and butter and the overwhelming majority of their work. There are some other nuanced things that they do, but we've never engaged them for, I would say we've maybe engaged them once or twice for some of that nuanced work. But like I said, the overall majority of their work and their expertise is doing the fee study cost analysis that state statute requires us to use a third party to conduct.
I asked you this afternoon if we've ever done a graduated increase before. Can you share the information you shared with me?
So yeah, member Phelan did ask. Administration, we went back and looked at county board minutes dating back to 2001. So that's as far back as we were able to go in the time allotted. So I can only speak to our history in the last quarter century or so far this century. And this is the first time that we've recommended and the board has considered some type of graduated schedule for a fee increase.
The last thing I will say is that I think because this is a policy, again, to the clerk, I'm very sympathetic to this increase. I do not agree that we are making a consideration to a singular department out of 5 that was studied, when there are some that are incurring larger increases. I think there are a lot of people paying attention to this vote, and I do not believe it is right of us to pick and choose when we follow policy. I recognize that this study was overlooked, and this has been a compounding problem, and that is a fault of the board and administration for failing to complete that process. However, with that said, I do not think I can support this amendment tonight. I will say that if someone wanted to amend our financial policy in a way that would allow us to do a scheduled increase across all departments that were part of this study, I would consider supporting that.
Thank you, Member Phelan. Member Rulon.
The increases, the funds generated by these increases could not be in the 26 budget because it hasn't passed yet. So it's not an income stream until we make it one. Therefore, next year's budget is unaffected by what we decide tonight. However, the 27 budget, it will be in effect. This amendment is a 2-year modification of those fees. It can be included and anticipated for 27. So from where we are today, it seems to be have no impact. With respect to other departments, that we may be singling one out, we are not singling one out. Clerk Parker is singling one out, and any one of those departments could have come forward and said the same or similar in the interest of looking out for their end users. On the issue of compliance with the policy, we've been out of compliance for about 8 years, and nobody seemed too upset during that period. So I have little sympathy for the policy question. This is a move to get in compliance with that policy, but it hardly constitutes an emergency based on the path we've taken over the last 8 years. I appreciate the work done by Member McCann to move this forward. I appreciate her willingness to find a compromise. And I say well done, and I'm going to support it.
Thank you, Member Rowland. Other comments? Member Allison.
For the sake of time, I won't restate everything that's been said, but I agree with something mentioned by Member Rowland to the fact that we've been out of compliance for a period of time, and this is getting us caught back up in the sense that it is graduated. It's how it was proposed, and that was something that was accepted prior to us going to committee. I will be supporting it because I appreciate the clerk reaching out with her concerns, and I hope any other department feels they can come forward if they have concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Allison. Member Alsasser.
Well, I've never been a very big fan of any fee increases because, especially the more personal ones like marriage and birth certificate. We want people to get married. We want people to have a lot of kids. I mean, people are leaving this community. I mean, every day it seems like I talk to somebody and they say, "Well, one of my kids lives in Nashville now." I said, I want to do everything I can to slow that down, and by keeping the fees low, so that people want to do the right things is a very important thing. Now, there's a difference between a marriage license and a fee for a developer, and I have a lot of friends that are developers, and they may say, "Well, there's really not," but we have to make sure that we create an economic environment so that people want to stay here. They want to do business here. If people get married, have kids, have jobs, buy a house, build a house, spend money on all kinds of things at Walmart and all the other different stores, Ron's carpets, that's what makes the economy thrive. And so I've never been a big fan of hardly any fee increases. I've actually had board members that I served with in the past who never, ever voted for a fee increase. And I can't say that I have been that way. I have voted for some fee increases, at the appropriate times. So the biggest thing to me is keeping people in this community right now. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, there's a movement for people to go to the south or the southwest or the southeast or whatever and leave Illinois. And so we got to do all we can to make the environment that we're living in and they're living in conducive so that they want to stay. And keeping the fees low, I think, is a very important part of that.
Thank you, Member Elsa. Member Williams.
Brian, weren't you on the board when we almost wouldn't make payroll? Okay. I just want you to remember that. And that's why that financial policy was put in place, is because we have to protect the taxpayers' money. And sometimes if someone is coming in and they want to get a birth certificate, it's the specific service, as Scott read on what the financial policy said. I mean, I can't understand sometimes as county board members, we do have to make decisions that are hard. This is a hard decision. Do I want to raise them? No. But our financial policy tells us that we should and we have to.
In response to that, I want to say that we did not balance our budget based on fee increases. We balanced our budget by making some really big decisions, and we laid off a lot of workers through attrition over the next several years. And we went from the bottom of the pit to the top of the mountain because we just didn't spend money on anything. And that's how we balanced the budget. I mean, sure, the fee increases probably help some, But that was just a very small amount compared to the bigger amount that got us to where we needed to be 10 years later.
But what if other departments come to us and they're saying the same thing? Then you're talking about a big number. I mean, Member Phelan covered that. Some of ours are going up a lot. They have to because they haven't been increased in over 8 years.
Debate.
So,
But you always have to remember when you
Member Williams, Member Elsasser, according to our rules, we're not engaged in a singular debate
Okay.
between two members.
Okay.
Member Ricker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. I'm a policy person. We put policy in place. It's there to make sure that everyone, administration, board, understands the why. And if the policy's bad, we modify it and change it. I'm going to probably lean towards Member Groves Allison on this one of, we've been out of compliance for up to 8 years on these. And there is need to have gray occasionally. And I have learned that through my life that not everything is black and white. I use the example, land use has requests that come through that don't fit the standard, and we review them, go through a process. So I would be willing to grant an exception under the terms of we have been out of compliance for multiple years because we have not done our fee studies. And I would, maybe we're all different from Member Groves Allison is, I would not open this up for future debate from other departments to come back later. I would ask that we be in compliance. We set the fees, we implement the fees. So I will support this. The other last comment I'll make is, quite frankly, as Member Phelan brought up, I went through the PCAPS numbers, and I'm more concerned about those numbers than these. I mean, we have expenses in there for bringing a canine in to leave with it's a surrender fee. It went from $0 to $80. And I think we're going to have maybe some negative outcomes of some of those where, if I have a family member, whatever, I have a canine I can't do anything with. I take it there. Today's numbers are, you will take it. I know it's a cost to us, but tomorrow with an $80 fee, that canine's probably getting dumped in an alley. And then PCAPS is probably out there with their vehicle to capture it. We're spending more money. And again, I don't want to debate the PCAPS ones, but my point is there's a lot of discussion. I think maybe next 2-year cycle, we should probably get in a little more discussion of the pros and cons, and maybe we can look at the outcomes of what we've done this time to see if there's lessons learned. But on a one-time basis, I'm willing to accept this amendment, but I'm not opening it up for future years. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ricker. Member Renault.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, promise.
Good.
I think this is a good compromise. I think Member McCain came up with something that wasn't exactly what Clerk Parker wanted. It isn't exactly what Sharon is advocating for, but it's a good middle ground, and I think it's going to serve us well. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Renault. Other comments? So, Member Duncan.
Again, I would just like to reiterate that a focus on the changes to be minimal and not abrupt. Period.
Member Clerk.
I was just going to say, I don't think you would have to worry about other departments coming and asking what I was asking because they were the drivers of that. They wanted those increases, so I don't think that would be an issue.
Any other comments from the board? So I will comment from seeing so many comments tonight. An engaged board is a good board. And we've been engaged, especially during this budget season, asking good questions, tough questions. An administrator knows my frustration lies in the 10-year gap between those studies. in the increase when we talk about policy. I originally voted for the full increase, and in many of the conversations I've had with board members across this horseshoe, I don't know, as Member Ricker said, there is a gray. That I don't necessarily think that the policy answer is the wrong answer, and I don't think the clerk's answer is the wrong answer. One of the adages, if you go into an argument with a closed mind, you've already lost the argument. I've heard a lot of good arguments this week. And in that, compromise should be considered in this circumstances. And I applaud Member McCann for sticking out there to actually offer up an amendment. I know there was other amendments discussed back and forth, but this one seemed to catch some ground. I do feel for Clerk Parker, we are only as good as the engagement we also have from our elected officials participating in here. You talk to other counties where the electeds don't feel wanted, don't hear comments, are not in anything, and those organizations are not high performing. The reason we are high performing is because we have unbelievable countywide elected officials, unbelievable staff that move this forward, and she should have some comments in there. This is a middle ground, and usually when everybody doesn't get what they want and compromise, that makes it a good thing. So I will be supporting this tonight, and Clerk Parker knows going forward, we have other things to talk about, unwritten policies. One thing I think we all need to continue to strive for is better communication with each other and have these conversations earlier instead of later. So that is the commitment I want to make on that from my end. That's sitting in this seat is better communication, and I think this is a step forward tonight. So I will be supporting it. Now remember, this is the amendment to go back to the original one, which is the stepped increase. Is there any other comments from the floor? Member Renault?
Just clarification, it's not going back to the original 3-year, it's a 2-year step, correct?
It's a 2-year step. So the proposal is in 26 the step, and in 27 the full amount, which was not the original proposal of stepped or the motion of the other one that went to first all the way. So the amendment that is offered is a stepped increase in 26 and full amount in 27 and beyond. Please cast your vote.
Member Duncan?
So we have 13 ayes and 5 nays.
Thank you.
Okay, so that would bring us back to the motion as amended. Is there discussion on the motion, on the resolution as amended? If not, Member Alsasser?
No, I just, regarding the fee increases, I'm very reluctant to vote for even the motion as amended, but just for example, the home occupation permit. There are a lot of people who run businesses out of their homes in Peoria County illegally because they don't have a permit. So are we better off keeping the fees low to incentivize these people perhaps to come in and sign up and be within the law, and then we would still make at least some money, not make money, but we would at least, have some income or revenue from them applying for the permit. That would pay for our people's time. But are we better to have the fees get too high and them saying, I'm just not even going to bother with it. I mean, I don't support them doing it illegally. Don't get me wrong, but we have to incentivize, make the situation favorable so that people want to come in and do the right thing.
Thank you, Member Alsasser. Those will be valuable conversations in committee. Member Rickard?
This may be a committee one, but I'm going to put it out there since I went through the bellwether study, a lot of good details. As a high-performing body here, the Peoria County government, I did not see anything in bellwether comparing kind of our fees. Matter of fact, they state they don't compare our fees to any other counties or any other municipal bodies. But as a high-performing, it'd be nice to have a benchmark of where do we come in with our comparable, like McLean County or anyone comparable, for future studies. I'm not asking for this, but for future studies, as we talk to bellwether, I think there'd be some value, and we could talk about our fees for a high-performing organization should be competitive. Just an additional thought for the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Rickard. Any other conversation on the as amended? If not, please cast your vote.
Member Daley?
$15 ayes and 3 nays.
We be at item number 9.3. 2025 tax levy ordinance payable in 2026. A joint ordinance from your Finance, Audit, and Legislative Affairs Committee and the Executive Committee recommending approval of the 2025 tax levy ordinance payable in 2026.
Member Williams, Member Daley. Comments? Member Rickard?
I'll keep these brief, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your comments of good input across the board. In committee, for those who have been in the executive committee last month, I did voice and put an amendment out there. It didn't pass, and I accept that. But as a one member of the board, I am concerned about the continued increase of property taxes. We've raised the property tax dollar amount. We didn't increase the rate, but the dollar amount, because the EAV has gone up, we've gone up 18% the past 3 years, which has brought in $9.4 million additional tax revenue over the 3-year period compared to 2022. Increasing or accepting this next one will will take it to $17 million additional. Again, economy's been challenging, understand, but I advocated and I'll continue to advocate. We need to do some tax relief. I would advocate to do that. I know that's not popular, but with that, I'll just put out there, I will be a no vote because I want to stand up and advocate for some tax relief. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Rickard. Any other comments? Seeing none, please cast your vote.
$16 ayes and 2 nays, with Member Elsasser and Ricker voting nay. Item 9.4. FY 2026 Annual Appropriation and Budget Ordinance, a joint ordinance from your Finance, Audit, and Legislative Affairs Committee and Executive Committee recommending approval of the annual appropriation and budget ordinance for fiscal year 2026.
Member Williams, Member Daley. Before we get to the amendments that are on there, CFO McCord has a presentation to go over for the meeting. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, before you tonight is the amended version of the 2026 budget. On the screen, it shows the new amounts, sources of funds 174 million and uses of funds also 174 million. This includes the amendments that were passed at committees last week, 2 weeks ago. Time flies. And I will note those amendments. It's an overall increase in expenses of $1.7 million from the recommended budget. That includes a budget neutral shift of $250,000 in the capital projects fund that was originally planned for the Hannah City Work Camp and now has been reallocated to the project at the highway to make improvements for ETSB. A budget increase of $500,000 towards the Hannah City Work Camp project to the Solid Waste Management Fund, and then an increase of $1.2 million in expenses that's split between three funding sources: $600,000 to the ARPA fund, $350,000 to the County Highway Fund, and $250,000 to the Matching Tax Fund. The revenues that we anticipate receiving from that project will reimburse both the County Highway Fund and the Matching Tax Fund in those amounts. High-level intergovernmental revenues make up 26.3% of the budget, while charges for services make up 20.9% and property taxes make up 20.7%. Personnel expenses are about 40% of the overall expenses, then contractuals at 22.3%, capital outlays 11%, and interfund activity also at 11%. The county is maintaining its longstanding practice to keep its approximate 10% share of the total property tax bill at a flat rate. However, the expected increase of 6.75% in the equalized assessed value translates to an overall increase in the property tax bills. The recommended levy is $36,164,881 at the flat 82.41 cent per $100 of equalized assessed value rate. This shows the history since 2011 of the EAV. A truth in taxation hearing was held on November 5th to comply with Illinois State Statute 35 ILCS 200 for when a tax levy increases by more than 5% from the prior year's tax levy. This graph shows the history over the past 15 years, where the county has had 2 3-year segments of a negative increase or a negative EAV. The 5th largest increase in 28 years is this coming year in 2026. It also shows tax rates adjusted for inflation over the same time period. In real dollars, the amount has actually decreased given the rate of inflation over that same time frame, and the average increase over that time frame is 1.66% per year. As mentioned, the policy to keep the property tax rate flat remains. However, we did shift some of the levies, amounts of the levies within the property tax. So we're proposing a 1.75% or 1.75 cent increase into the general fund, which maxes it out at the 25 cent per $100 EAV rate. We're decreasing the IMRF fund by 1.87 cents and the FICA fund by 4.05 cents, and then increasing the risk fund for 4.17 cents. The EAV growth rate equals $2.2 million in additional property tax revenue for next fiscal year. You can see a breakout of the amounts here, the different levies. On the left, by the fund name, is the maximum rate limit that we can charge, and all the way to the right is the rate limit that is being assessed in 2026. The rate includes 0.7618 per $100 EAV for operating expenditures. That translates to $33 million, and 6.23 cents for retirement expenditures in IMRF and FICA, which equates to $2.7 million. And the county is not levying a debt service this year because we have alternate revenue sources to cover those expenses. This shows the percent of the budget that is overseen by the committees. For example, the Executive Committee oversees 28% of the revenues, but only 8% of the expenses. And the Public Safety and Justice Committee oversees 18% of the revenues and 36% of the expenditures. With the amendments passed at the October committees, the general fund remains at a $1.2 million deficit for the fiscal 26 budget. Reserves will be used to fund the budget increase, and this will go towards the $3.5 million in the budget for pre-construction services for the jail master plan and improvements there. Intergovernmental revenues make up the greatest share of revenues in the general fund at about 45%. And then charges for services and property taxes are the next largest percentage at about 17% each. Personnel expenses in the general fund are 64.6% of the expenses, with contractuals at 20% and interfund activity at 7.5%. We have multiple funds in the budget next year that we're planning a spend down of reserves that have accumulated over the last several years. I'm just going to highlight a few here for you of the larger ones. The total amount, the total planned fund balance is just over $19 million to spend down, and these accounts make up about $16 million of that. The Emergency Telephone System Board has a planned spend down of about $4.5 million, and that is for two very large projects, an Elmwood Tower and the Chillicothe microwave system replacement. The Capital Projects Fund, as I mentioned, we have a lot of projects in the pipeline, including the jail master plan. FICA and IMRF, we shifted those down this year. I want to reiterate that the pensions and retirement accounts are fully funded. They will be fully funded. Over the past several years, because we budget for 100% employment and we don't fill 100% of the vacancies, those funds are budgeted in FICA and IMRF, and they accumulate over time. They're not spent because the salaries aren't spent. And so this year, we decided to spend those down to a reasonable fund balance and kind of offset pressure on other funds and initiatives. The Juvenile Detention Center, we have a plan to spend down for a similar reason. As you know, written into the budget every year, there's a general fund transfer to the JDC fund. Even if there is a surplus at the end of the fiscal year, the general fund has been funding it at the full freight. So it's accumulated a fund balance over the past several years of about $2.1 million. And so we're going to use that this year to spend that down. The general fund, again, this is for investment in the jail master plan projects. Probation services fund, we are, again, spending that down to and having it utilized for intended purposes. IT services fund, similar, and then the employee health fund. We are going to use that to cover runoff claims from the self-funded insurance plan that ended last year. Runoff claims will go through June of 2026. Given personnel is the county's largest investment, we feel it important to highlight here for you. The top table shows the actual spend in fiscal 22 through fiscal 25's projected spend as entered into the budget. From 24 to 25 projection, it's a 5.6% increase. The second table shows adopted versus recommended from 24 through 26. I just want to point out that because of the way that we've budgeted for the vacancies this year, that's why there's a $2 million increase in the executive committee's budget for personnel. 1.9 million of that would actually go to the Public Safety and Justice Committee, so their increase would be about 41 million if those positions are 100% filled, and Ways and Means had $100,000 of a position in there. This shows the headcount by unit of government over the past several years. And this is a different view of the same information where the number of FTEs per committee, departments that report up by committee. So, for example, the largest is Public Safety and Justice with 438 FTE, 64% of the workforce, and the smallest is Finance, Audit, and Legislative Affairs with 7.85 FTE at 1.1%. Just to highlight, several departments were affected by reallocation of labor. So that's most of the top half of the slide. FTE requests for fiscal 26 are 0.5 FTE in supervisor of assessments for a contracted to fulfill a contract, 0.29 to convert a temp employee to a permanent part-time employee, an addition in the coroner's office for a forensic pathologist, and 1 FTE in the state's attorney's office for a second receptionist. Courts has requested 2 new positions. One is a youth opportunity court probation officer that will be funded by a grant, and then a domestic violence probation officer that will be covered by county funds. JDC had a request for 2 FTE for security screening, public defender 1 FTE for an assistant public defender. The health department reduced their headcount by 10.26 FTE, and the Veterans Assistance Commission has a request for 1 new FTE, another front desk receptionist. Policy initiatives of the board. We have a lot of capital improvement projects budgeted for next year. With the amendment, it's a $31.69 million for 79 projects and different initiatives. Again, the $3.5 million for the focus on the jail. The long-term care services fund attained a positive balance last year. It's now earning interest income as planned. And then another project to highlight is to remodel the courthouse storefront next year. Just want to highlight ARPA projects that have been completed as of November 12th. We've closed out just over a dozen projects. These are the ones that we still have in process, and we have just over $3 million, or just around $3 million left to pay out on all of the ARPA projects. And finally, these are the capital improvement requests that were included in the budget, including the amendments made for the Highway ETSB office to the Fence Road, totaling $31.69 million for next year. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Heather? Member Williams?
I just have a comment. Heather and team, I mean, you can't believe the work that Heather puts in. It's incredible. We're so happy to have you at the county as our CFO. Scott and your team has done an amazing job. We've you know, it's been a lot of work, but I just wanted to shout out to all those folks that have really put in the time and work on this.
Thank you, Member Williams. Member Ricker?
Yeah, I guess tagging on the shout outs, one action, and especially from an operations point of view, was the vacancy fund, I'll call it. There might be a better name for it. I thought that was a great initiative this year to take those vacancy positions, pull it into a fund, just as CFO McCord had commented on. I'd like to call out Member Phelan. He was a big lead in this from as a board member, and I want to call out Heather and her team. And again, I think this is a really positions and giving those departments the opportunity. We didn't take the positions away. They have a reason for them. So when they do fill those positions, the funds are available. So we didn't withhold the funds. We just pulled them into a separate category to better manage. So kudos to the team that did that work.
Thank you, Member Ricker. Other comments before we get to the amendments? Seeing none, Member Phelan.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the budget language for the use of the leftover vacancy dollars in the general county departmental budget in the general fund at 9.3.1.
Is there a second? Member Allison? Member Blair?
I just want to thank Member Phelan for bringing this back as a floor amendment so we could have a little bit more time to canoodle about it, or noodle about it. Not canoodle about it.
Member Phelan?
Yeah, I would just like to say I appreciate everyone considering this. I think this is important language to be included. One oversight that I had as we discussed and created a vacancy fund was that provided dollars to go back to executive committee rather than the committee that they were budgeted to. So this language is cleaning that up. If anyone was at committee, it was clear that I was frustrated to see it fail on the floor because I'm very passionate about this. But I would thank everyone that challenged me on that because I believe this comes back to you tonight with stronger language than it had 2 weeks ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Phelan. Other comments? Seeing none, we were voting on Member Phelan's amendment to go back to their original amendment. The updated language from this amendment to go into the original resolution, and then we'll go back to another amendment to add that language back in there. So this is Amendment 1. Please cast your vote.
Yeah, let's go. $18 ayes.
Okay. We're back to the annual appropriation budget ordinance as amended. Now there's Amendment 2. Member Daley?
Thank you. As Member Williams and I talked to people regarding the jail.
Member Daley, make the motion and then we'll have a second, and then we'll have floor discussion.
All right, okay. I move that we pause the funding for the county board to attend conferences in the FY26 budget.
Is there a second? Member Williams? Okay, now discussion.
Okay. Well, I won't repeat what I've already said. As we listened to people, they said they do not want to raise property taxes in order to pay for the jail repairs. And we know that we need to make the jail repairs. So although this is not an enormous amount of money, I'm hoping that it is symbolic and other departments will take a look at their own budgets and try to be very mindful of what they're spending and the requests for FTEs, because I don't see how we're going to get to what we need for the jail repairs unless we do that. So this is really trying to set an example of what we're hoping other departments will do.
Thank you, Member Daly. Comments across the horseshoe? Member Blair?
I will not be supporting this amendment. I think that professional development, including for county board members, is important. The people we meet might help us, and the things we learn there may actually help us in terms of these jail improvements, among other things. This was the first year out of my 6 years here that I got to attend, and I think that the return on investment is worth it.
Thank you, Member Blair. Member Duncan?
I will not be supporting in regards, because sending board members to conferences provides valuable learning opportunities for networking, increased inspiration and engagement. And these events are very critical as far as encouraging our board members to stay current in where we work. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Duncan. Other comments? Member Ricker?
And again, great discussion. I will support this amendment. It's a one-year pause. And again, it's for as I think Member Daly used the word symbolic, it's to show we as a board are willing to tighten the belt, I'll use those terms, going forward. I do agree that we need to continue developing our members, giving opportunities. There are other opportunities locally. I would ask board members to consider. I do go to some of the Illinois ISAB events on my own dime. That's my choice. Now, I'm not asking you to do that, but I do those. So there are other development opportunities, but for 1 year, I am supporting this one.
Member Rosenbaum?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be supporting this because putting the pause on 1 year isn't going to hurt this board. Sometimes we have to tighten our belts to get what we really need. And so I think, as Member Ricker said, it's symbolic. As Member Daly said, it's symbolic. If we can find ways to cut the cost to make the jail improvements, that is more important than our, if we feel like we need to go that badly, then maybe we should pay for it out of our own pockets and make the taxpayers pay for it. So a 1 year pause on it, I don't think will hurt anyone, and I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Member Renaud?
Thank you. I appreciate Member Daly's efforts in looking for ways to save some money. There are plenty of opportunities to get involved and stay informed without traveling. I chair an ISACO committee from my home. Like I don't go anywhere. I haven't for 2 years, and I've chaired a committee and have the same relationships with other county board members throughout the state. And I know NACO does the same thing. When I talked to Member Daly about this, I did want to make sure that it didn't include our administrator, because I know he's on the executive committee of NACO. He does need to go to those, but for county board members for a 1 year pause, I don't think it's going to be a detriment to whatever information or relationships we form, because they can still be formed in other means.
Thank you, Member Duncan.
I just want to be clear that I didn't see where it was written 1 year pause. Was it? It was a pause, but was it 1 year pause?
This is meant for this year's budget, and there will be discussion again for 2027's budget when it comes up. So this is a 1 year, it's taking it out.
It's written in this
And I think Member
amendment.
Daley's tried to, in conversations, express that her intent is for 1 year, I believe.
Is it? She said yes. Oh.
Other comments? I will say, from the chair's seat, I do appreciate Member Daley calling on Saturday morning to have this discussion so that it wasn't there. I did express that, I wish it would have happened maybe in committee versus this floor, but a good debate as we normally have and engaged topics. She went and called everybody. I told her to keep her informed, and by Sunday, a phone call back. And it was intent for 1 year. I do believe, I personally have not sent myself on anything. I know we had a long window of not sending it, but there is good engagement, especially the DC fly-ins and meeting with the legislators and staff and some of the other ones that we have that I do see value in that. And I know many of you have had that opportunity where in the past it wasn't presented, and we've made it available for everybody to do that. So being that it's 1 year, I would agreed that I would vote for this today, but in future budgets, if we have the money there, I would like to see to make sure that we do have the professional development tools for us to meet people from around the country, go to seminars, and meet our legislators, even though they're local, meet them where they're at as well. And we've invested heavily in lobbyist firm out there that I thought it was important too, that many had time to meet with them and talk about concerns as well. So with that, is there any other comments? Seeing none, please cast your vote.
Fifteen ayes, 3 nays, with members Blair, Duncan, and McCann voting nay.
That brings us back to, as amended twice, 9.4, fiscal year 26 annual appropriation and budget ordinance. Is there discussion on that before we call a vote? Member Ricker?
So I'm going to make a motion, so I'll try not being too wordy with the motion. The motion is to delay the 2026 county budget resolution until the December 11th, 2025 regular board meeting to allow administration to present the initial funding plan for the Peoria County Jail improvements at the November committee meetings. So that's the motion that I put on the floor.
Is there a second? Member Ruland. Discussion? Member Ruland?
My second is made with an ulterior motive because I wanted this to be discussed, and because I believe so much in what Member Daley has said. I think this is the same issue, but in a much bigger context. Since I've been on this board, we've gone from $134 million to $174 million budget. From that, we have not been able to scrape together enough to make the first effort in pay and as we go on the jail. We have A&E only in the 26 budget. If our EAV drops, This budget trend is immediately unsustainable. If you lived here in the 80s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Our contract terms with bargaining units, along with the trend that we've been following for administrative raises, will cost us $4.5 million. The funding for the jail improvements should have started in this 26 budget. Even if we carried it over because we can't get the work started till 27, we'd be $10 million ahead. Out of 174 million, all we've proven is that we are really good at spending money. There's a lot of good work that's been done. Member Williams, Member Daly, Member Ricker, in finding ways to set money aside for the jail. And this budget seems to have ignored that. We want to start in 27, and I think the best time to start is right now. So I'm not sure I'll even vote for this, even though I seconded it. I want this budget to move forward, but I think it needs to be said that, you know, we better brace ourselves for what's coming. I really think we should have started this jail funding process now. That's all I have.
Thank you, Member Rulon. Member Phelan, no? No. Member Williams?
Thank you. I just want to give a shout out to Terry and Steve because now from the work that you've done, I'm not going to support this because I think the budget should move forward. However, what the work you have done, Steve, to get us to November, because we're going to start talking about this at the November committee meetings, that you made that happen. So I appreciate the work that you and Terry have done on this. Again, I think that probably wouldn't have happened if you wouldn't have pushed the issue. So I'm not going to support it because I think we need to move the budget forward, but I do want to give a shout out to the hard work that you've done.
Other comments? Member Alsasser?
I very much appreciate Member Rulin's comments because I've been on this board long enough to know that there's ups and downs. And that one slide back there, if you notice, every 5 years, there's 3 years in a row of negative EAV. And I don't think this budget that we're passing tonight is prepared for that. It's not prepared for it. I mean, I've just seen too many times where all of a sudden, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. It could be, I mean, you just don't know in the world or in the United States. But I don't think we're prepared for that. And then Mr. Rulon started to point that out, or he didn't say we're not prepared, but I'm glad that he brought it up. And so I will certainly concur with his thoughts.
Other comments? Member Ricker?
And again, I want to thank all of my peer board members here for having good discussions, giving good consideration. And again, I look at this as a multi-year plan. Facilities are never a one-year plan. They're a multiple year. I think speaking on my side of the board, or as one board member, I think I've heard loud and clear, we want to do a pay-as-you-go. We asked to break it down into projects, which Director Woods did, I think, a very good job, along with Sheriff Watkins in the August meeting, presented the projects and what we had planned. You know, the next thing, logical thing, anyone, and, you know, some people are business owners here, you plan and you put a budget and a plan and a fund. Where does the money come from? And that was the ask. You know, we have a plan that was presented to Executive Committee in August. Director Woods and the sheriff both asked for approval to go forward. I've watched that meeting about 5 times. I'm not sure I heard a clear yes. I think there was a head nod to go forward. To go forward, the next step is to put some initial numbers. Administrator Sorrell and I have had some really good discussions. Yes, we don't know the exact numbers today, but I think we've got some good estimates of each of those first projects. And shame on us if we don't earmark some dollars of where this money's coming from so we can speak clearly to our constituents of how we're going to fund this. Because the other thing I heard loud and clear at the June meeting out at the jail was, I don't think there's anyone that has an appetite for a referendum for doing a building bond. There may be a few, but I'm pretty confident the majority would not do a bond as we sit here today. So if that's off the table and we said pay as you go, the ask is, and I expect to see in the November meeting, what the funds will be for each of these projects and or the dollar amounts. And it's an initial. I'm willing for those to move as the architect work gets done. We know finalized. I'll throw a number. Maybe the kitchen today is 7 million. We do architect work and it might go to 9 or it might go to 5. We don't know. But shame on us if we don't budget the first best estimate and find the, where's the revenue coming from? To kick the can down the road to to the 2027 budget is not a good decision. We need to know where that money's coming from. And we don't want to be sitting here a year from now saying, we don't know where we're getting the money. So again, I don't want to belabor this, but this is important. This is a planning. This is what boards do. You plan ahead, especially in these large dollar amounts. So again, I'll leave it that I'm really looking forward to the presentations at the committee meetings and the details exactly where the funds will come from for these first rounds of projects. And again, thank you to all the board members. Understand, I'm sure this won't pass for a delay. And quite frankly, I'm okay with that. I wanted the discussion on the floor, just as Member Phelan, Member Williams, and others have commented. Sometimes we need to talk about these things and make sure we're really working together, and we do work together. So again, thank you for all of your considerations and engagement.
Thank you, Member Rickert. Other comments? So I always do enjoy debate with Member Rickert. He gives good proposals and you have time to debate. I absolutely don't agree with a lot of it, what was said. So, or delaying the budget. I think we can go down parallel paths. I think it is very clear that this board said we are not going to raise taxes. We are not going to put out for bonds. So using, I think, Member Ricker's own quote against the firm that did this is a false narrative that the jail needs tore down tomorrow. That is a false narrative, that it's unsafe, that it's falling apart. Yes, it's like anybody's house. Are there things that need to be worked on? Yes, this is not an overnight solution. We've addressed it on the last few years by putting a new roof on there. Huge. We put new ATUs on. Ring roads done. We've done tuck pointing around the building. The board identified through those plans what its priorities are. That next step was putting the A&E funds. That I'm extremely proud of, that was not an easy task in its own right. But I think the board also gave a strong directive of not to neglect our other facilities in that process. So how do we find a way to continue down the road of paying for our facilities and have the jail conversation? We will get there. The plans were coming to present these numbers. Staff was working on it to get us to there. So this has always been part of the process to show, because it is clear when we had those committees, we are not voting to raise taxes through bonds, through us, through the Public Building Commission was given as an option, and other options. So how do we do that? As a pay-as-you-go, and we will figure that out over time. It will not happen overnight. So also, we just had $300,000 in the budget to run new electrical for the equipment. That buys us some time in the jail for these plans to get done. And we've identified the priorities. Kitchen number 1, laundry is included in that. Mechanicals will come along as needed. And then the last plan is for the mental health portion of that. So I do think that we're headed in the right direction. We will be able to plan. We have numbers that were given of 200 million, 120 million. We landed on this number of about 30 million is where we're at, and that reflective of the 3.5 million that's being budgeted for that. I have faith in this board that we will have open and honest conversations about that. I have faith in our staff now that we've always had faith in our staff, but I think we've taken that serious enough that we hired Melissa Woods and Kyle Smith to help with those projects. And the sheriff has been a very receptive and agreeable partner in this as an elected official to have those discussions. So I think we'll see things moving forward, but the first part of that is to actually have we've engaged PJ Hare. PJ Hare's on there. They're actually giving us some real-time assessments of the facility, which is great. I know Kyle's been out there numerous times to do that, Melissa Woods. We will go figure this out. It just won't be overnight. And be prepared. This might take, for what we're looking, 10 years to do at a thing, but I don't want to neglect our other facilities while we're doing that. So, but I do appreciate the conversation and the debate as always. Any other comments? Seeing none, please cast your vote. So the actual vote right now is a deferment of the budget. So if you want to defer the budget till December's meeting, it would be an affirmative vote. If you want to deny and vote on the budget as recommended, that would be a no. So against is if you want to go back and vote for the budget. A for is if you want to delay this process for another month.
Three ayes and 15 nays.
So now back to the original as amended twice, fiscal year 9.4 fiscal year 26 annual appropriation and budget ordinance. Member Ricker?
Apologize for monopolizing the time. Just for consistency, I made my comments on the levy earlier on the levy vote to my desire to give taxpayers relief of $1 million. To do that, I would have to vote against the budget because of the levy. So my consistency of voting against the budget tonight is because of my desire to give taxpayer relief. Just for clarity. It's not because the motion didn't pass, the amendment of that. It's to be consistent with the levy that I disagreed with.
Other comments? Seeing none, please cast your vote. As amended twice.
We might have everybody. Brian. 16 ayes and 2 nays, with member Alcesser and Ricker voting nay. Miscellaneous and announcements.
We'll start on member Alsasser's side. Anything, member Alsasser? Salzer?
Of course, we all know that Thanksgiving coming up, and I know many of us appreciate that we live in this country, and we've got a lot of things that are problems, but we've got a whole mess of things that are great about us. And I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Member Salter. Member Rosenbaum?
I want to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving. And I also want to thank everybody for being so civil and kind to each other while we did this budget, while we're going. I really appreciate being on this board, that we can get things done. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Member Rosenbaum. Member Williams?
It's time for our potluck. So next county board meeting, Thursday, December 11th, we'll start at 5 o'clock. Linda and I are going to take care of the Italian beef, so it looks like we're going to have a pretty good meal with everything that everybody signed up. But if you didn't sign up, let me know, and we'll get you down for whatever you're going to bring.
Speaking of, Member Daly, did you ever get your bowl back from Member Alsasser?
That's why I'm not bringing a salad again.
Member Ricker, do you have anything? Member Allison?
Just wanted to step back real quick and wish all of the veterans out there, hopefully they had a great Veterans Day, and say we all thank you as a board for your service and for the freedoms that we have due to your sacrifices.
Good point, Member Allison. Member Blair?
I just wanted to give a thank you and shout out to the Sheriff's Office for the Grayson trial. I did listen to Sonia Massey's family at the press conference right after, and they gave a thank you to the sheriff as well for how he handled everything for that. Thank you guys for taking that very seriously. And while we may be billing Sangamon County, we're not probably going to get much of our money back from that.
I have two comments that I wanted to share that are very positive. Member Ricker and I did a county update for a group, and during the question and answer period, the first person said that she agreed with me. She loves our GIS, that we have the best website that she's ever seen for a government unit, and that she loves the interactive map also. The second person raised their hand and said, I don't understand why all the new roads other people build are not as good as the county roads. We did not get one negative comment. I mean, it was, so I think that's really wholly positive, that nobody had any grumbling about anything, and they came up with two really positive things.
Member Bryan? Member Duncan?
Yes, like Member Allison, to remember the veterans, it's not too late, and to know that their services has not gone unnoticed, and that it's not that we can take more than one day to acknowledge them and thank them for their services. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Administrator?
Two things, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. First, my acknowledgments to all of you around the horseshoe, all of our elected officials and appointed officials that helped get us to a point to the budget that you just adopted. Finance and administration can't do that with the policy direction from you, and we can't do that with the help and assistance from everybody else in the organization. So thank you. Second is a reminder for those of you sitting around the horseshoe, if you've not completed your cyber training for the year, please do that. If you're unsure if you've completed it, there are 4 modules that came out, 1 per quarter. Let myself or Mark Little know, and we'll run a report to see if you have not completed the training, and if we need to, we'll resend the link to you.
For those of you that don't know, well, first of all, I'd like to thank all the board members. I've been playing phone tag with some of you, and I have talked with just about all of you, and I truly appreciate the conversations. But secondly, I wanted to say that our office has started what's called Clerk on the Move. We went to Elmwood last week. It was well received. What we've done is take our office out on the road. We supplied them with their birth record or the death certificate or a marriage license. And the older people really appreciated us coming to them instead of them having to drive all the way to Peoria. Our next stop is Brimfield and then Chillicothe. But as you're talking about revenue and budgets, that is another option or another avenue that our office will have to generate more income as well.
Thank you. Scott, well done. You and your team, fantastic as always for the courthouse security. A lot of employees in here, we could not do it without you. We have the best staff, hands and elected officials anywhere in the state of Illinois. So a lot of people look forward to us. I do have county board chairs that say they follow what we're doing. And if we're doing it, that means it's probably a good thing that it's being done. So those to the new faces that are here, welcome Sherry Carter Allen and Sherry Cannon. And I think this is a long time been in gap here, but welcome JJ Bullock and the Journal Star for attending a meeting. So I think many of you, last time we saw that was when Andy Kravitz was here. I don't know how long that ago that was, but welcome everyone. So with that, meeting adjourned by 8.